So I think it needs to be called out that recruiters at the core are salespeople because for the last couple of days, I've had multiple recruiters try to actively sabotage a recruiter that I was trying to work with. And what happened was I was contacted by a recruiter at a staffing company, and they said that they had a client that they were trying to hire for, and it was a harder role for them to fill because they needed somebody with extensive experience. And they were contacting me because I definitely had that experience. And so they submitted me, or rather, she submitted me. And then I found out that some of her coworkers that were also working on the role are also working on it on a commission basis. That's right. These 3 people were competing to submit candidates for that role. And so as a result of that, I received 2 calls from her peers telling me that it was canceled. One of them telling me that it was my interview was canceled because of unforeseen events. The other one telling me that it was actually filled already and I shouldn't show up to the interview, which surprised her when she called me today to remind me that I had an interview today. And I explained to her that although it was still on my schedule, I had received 2 different calls from her peers, and then I named them, explaining exactly what they said, telling me that it had been canceled and that I shouldn't show up. She was not happy. In fact, she let me know that she was going to call me back. She did, and told me that she had, and I quote, talked to her team, and was not happy about that. And it was very clear to me that she had had 2 male salespeople trying to sabotage not only her sales commission, because she was the one in the chain of influence, but also my interview. And so you have to understand that that's going on as well. It's not necessarily the skills of the software development engineer that are keeping them out of work. It's also the fact that a lot of recruiters are commission-based salespeople, and as a result, they're fighting with each other. And once you are a owned candidate or you are a candidate that is working with a specific recruiter, all other recruiters are a competition. And so those actual people are competing to place people for their own metrics and their own numbers because they're in a commission-based sales role. And so what's happening there is you have salespeople fighting over candidates and trying to not allow some people to actually get a job because it doesn't make them money if their peer submits you versus they do. And so I'm going to call that out because it's BS. In my mind, it shouldn't matter. If I get submitted to a role, then that staffing company wins if I get the job. There shouldn't be a pay structure involved where I'm getting calls from 2 of her peers who are trying to sabotage it from my end and make it look like I'm a no-show when I'm not, simply because they don't want the woman to get the commission because they're trying to get her fired because they don't want a woman in that role. That doesn't seem fair to me at all. And so when I showed up to the interview today and I expressly, said, "Hey, thanks for having me, blah, blah, blah," it was not a good thing when suddenly the person I was having an interview with had technical problems and had to reschedule. Yeah, that sucked. They literally lost their audio. We had good 5 minutes of discussion. Everything was great, and then their audio cut off because their mic stopped working. I'm not gonna get into that. That just I'm not happy, to say the least. And so be very careful when you work with recruiters. There are good ones out there. I'm not going to be one of those guys that bashes all recruiters because I'm not that type of guy. But what I will say is that there are some recruiters out there that will benefit from your lack of success. And if you find yourself interacting with those people, block them.